Happy Friday the 13th, and I am here to share some insights that I have had over the week. I'm super in a great mood. I'm stoked because it is that time of year when I pack up and head to Lake Wales for a winter solstice, which is a white Tantra Kundalini yoga event. And if you've never been, it is something I highly recommend you put on your bucket list of things to do, because my experience is mine and I can't tell you what your experience will be. So it's important to just go out and do it. Like, this is life, and we can all talk about, this has been my experience with such and such and this and that and da-da-da. I love those words, right? They're so general. But the reality is life is about living, and it's all about your experience, because we all have belief systems around everything. And if we even consider doing something, we're going to have a belief or a preconceived notion or idea related to that. So sometimes that in itself will take you out of an experience. Just immerse yourself in it. That's the best advice I could give anybody in life today, is don't talk about it, don't think about it, don't ask for other people's experiences and ideas and input. If it calls to you, get on it and just do it. Because I think the biggest problem that I know for myself that I've had in life is I wanted other people to support me, validate me, and believe in me the same way I felt within my heart and knowing. And it really boils down to that leads to disappointment. Because if other people don't see and get your vision or understand where you're coming from, because their experiences in life have been totally different than yours, the way they were raised, the people they grew up around, again, it's all conditioning. It's totally different for you, for me, for every one of us is unique. And so you gotta trust, you gotta tap into that inner knowing, you've gotta cultivate that self-awareness. It's all about being present in the moment and trying not to get caught up in the fear or the expectation of the past repeating itself in the future, because no experience is ever going to be exactly the same. Now, something may feel similar, but usually that's because you're feeling the triggers. You're feeling the good and bad, because it can bring excitement and go, oh, this feels like when such and such happened. This excitement within you comes up. But then it turns out to be something totally different. Or, ooh, something doesn't feel right. Like my tummy is toppling over a couple times. And that in itself could be just the emotion behind something that happened in your past, and you're worried about it repeating itself. Whatever we believe is true for us. That is one thing I have learned in my life. If I believe in something happening, then a lot of times it happens. It's not Murphy's Law. Murphy doesn't just jump in there and surprise, we're going to throw, if something bad will go wrong, it's going to go wrong. And like all those old paradigm and statements and little things that you probably heard growing up. At least I know I did. I really wanted to get on here because there's even the belief around Friday the 13th being, it's all spooky, it's violence, it's horror shows. Who grew up watching Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, seen them all. I'm kind of over horror films. I never really liked them. I believe the reasons I used to watch those films was to connect with my best friends, because funny enough, a lot of my best friends love horror films. I personally prefer comedy. I like romance. I like drama. I do like action-packed with the side of humor. I'm not really big on those strongly powerful, like violent films. And they've done studies. They've looked at the statistics of how many people are killed in the beginnings of those films compared to back years ago, where it was so many minutes into the film somebody would get killed, and now it's like instant first thing in the movie. So many people are killed in the movie, and it desensitizes us. We don't realize that we are manipulated and conditioned through everything we are exposed to on every moment, in every given moment. So whether you choose to watch a horror film or a love story or a comedy or the news, there is subliminal programming in all of it. Some good, some bad. Some of it you have no idea. You don't even realize how it influences you because you're just blindly just watching. Well, I just watched this film, and then you didn't sleep well, or you had strange dreams, or all of a sudden you're seeing things that seem similar to the movie. And this depends on how sensitive you may be. I know I am. I am so sensitive to TV shows and movies that if I watch a film at night, I'll have some influence in my dreams. Or the next morning, maybe I wake up just kind of a little still off, and I'm still thinking about it. It takes a good 3 days. It seems that 3 days is a normal number, at least 3 days, to kind of flush it out of my system, mentally and physically and everything else. And again, it really goes back to, do you really believe these movies and how much you're going through watching that it applies to you? Because that's the other thing, is whatever's happened in our past follows us through every given moment. And we don't even realize how unconscious it is, that it influences what we do and what we say and how we act and how we dress, the people we hang around. But we can change that. With self-awareness, we can change that. It's just that moment. Happy Friday! It's just that moment when you go, whoa, flashback. And when it brings up a memory, you start to confront it and go, okay, well, that memory came up for a reason. And I believe this. I believe whenever something comes up for our review, it's an opportunity to shift it, to change the story around it, to work forward, to let go of old beliefs and old stories. I believe personally, you should always question your own beliefs and the story behind them, and whether they're even yours. Because if you grew up in certain households, you may have noticed that, oh my gosh, now I'm sounding like my mother. Oh my gosh, my father used to do that. My sister and I will have these conversations all the time. And we laugh about it, but that shows how influenced we are at young ages. From the ages up until 6 or 7 is we are most vulnerable and malleable and flexible to absorb. Those are our formative years, people. That is when we absorb all that information. We learn to lie. We learn our coping mechanisms to get our needs met, because we have to create them. If our needs are not met at those young ages, we go into survival skills. We develop manipulative ways of getting our needs met. Those are called coping mechanisms or survival skills. And the reason that happens is because not everything is perfect for every one of us growing up. It doesn't make it good or bad. It doesn't make your parents bad people. They were doing the best they could with what they had. And as an adult, we have the opportunity. We can't keep on blaming and looking back and pointing fingers and telling the same story about how horrible our childhood was. Oh, woe is me. It turns into, I'm an adult. I have the choice and the responsibility to step into living a better life. If you're aware that you had not the best growing up, you have that chance and that awareness to go, I'm going to rewrite this story. But it takes self-initiation and a willingness, which is not always comfortable, by the way, to do the work. To rewrite the story means to actually confront the story itself. Like, oh my gosh, do I keep saying this? Do I keep telling how I used to be such and such, and or I'm not good at this because, that's a story in itself. I remember, here's a great example. I wanted to play softball one year when I was in grade school. And the coach, which he was dating a friend of my father's, and he used to pick on me. I don't know. I just didn't feel very comfortable around him. He felt like he would put me down. Well, when I went to go try for the softball team, I was pretty much shunned and taught to believe that I wasn't as good as the rest. So I wasn't even allowed to play, or I didn't play well, so then I wasn't on the team. I was like, I was kind of bummed out. And when at those times, at that particular moment, I was in a small school, so there wasn't a lot of people. Just like when I wanted to learn, I wanted to sing with the chorus. I wanted to sing with what was called All State. And there was a small group of us, and only a couple people didn't get selected, and I was one of them. You know how discouraging that is growing up as a child to not be selected. And then you look at a friend and you go, well, I thought I was better than that person at the least. Or, it's very discouraging. It's kind of like the post that I posted. We all want to be included when it really boils down to it. A lot of our coping mechanisms come around not wanting to be rejected. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved for who we are. And if something as simple as sports or school activities and we're not accepted into those groups, those influence us in our self-esteem in many ways. Because if you are really wanting to do something and then you're discouraged because they say you're not good at it or not holding to the vision, that doesn't mean you should take it at face value, but it does influence our belief systems. Unless you've got extremely strong will and you're one of those people who goes, watch me, you may not have accepted me, but I'll go do it over here. Now, I never felt like I was that bad at softball. I was kind of more mad at it in the circumstances because I felt like there was favoritism involved. The same thing with the chorus and the all state, the singing. There was a part of me that said, I'm not going to let that discourage me, but it did bum me out. I'm not going to deny that. And yes, I did feel rejected in the rejection form of feeling like there was favoritism. And that happens so often. And that is one of the hardest things for children. And one of the things I think we forget about with this political correctness is that we have to appease a few people and upset and deny, reject others. Why not be all inclusive? This is really where we're trying to bring our lives around to where everybody feels accepted, everybody feels loved. The belief system should not be this or that, him or her, one or the other. It's gotten too much of the extremes. And we need to come back to a balance in this world. That's how I feel personally. But I really wanted to get on here and share some insight that I had today that I thought was it was kind of funny. Because I went to Yoga Nidra this morning, and Yoga Nidra is also considered waking sleep. So you're conscious, but it's like you're in a drifty sleep, like you're not asleep, but you're still hearing and listening and being guided. It's when you're in theta brainwaves. So this particular teacher and this particular class I had been in before many, many years ago, and I've been going off and on over the years. I get easily triggered by noises. This was my old stuff. That I didn't want to hear someone's cell phone go off or people talking in the background or certain little noises would trigger me. So years ago, I remember there was a cell phone going off, and at the end of class, I walked up to the instructor and I was a teacher too of yoga still. And I asked her, could you make sure that people turn their cell phones on vibrate, not even put it on vibrate, because that, when you're laying on the floor, is almost as bad as the phone ringing. I asked her if she could remind people about their cell phones and not, turning them off. And she proceeded to, at the time, my impression was that she was dismissive. Like, she wasn't listening to my concerns. Because then she said, you also have to kind of know that it's not always going to be so quiet, and you have to kind of take in the noises and not be attached to them. And I kind of walked out of there going, really? She didn't even listen to what I was saying, and she totally dismissed what I meant. And so, funny enough, years later, I've learned from that doesn't make it right or wrong. She wasn't being dismissive, but maybe she was. It could be interpreted no matter how you look at it, wherever you're at. You can see the negative in it, or you can see the positive in it. Now, here's what I gleaned over the years is the positive is, the more you're willing to accept the canvas of your environment when you are sitting in what you're trying to make a silent meditation or you're trying to focus, the mind is always going to look to get distracted. And you know why? Because the silence is uncomfortable and the mind is there to protect you. The ego mind is constantly looking for danger. It's looking for signals, signs, ways to keep you safe, of ways that it thinks you may perceptually be harmed, but most of it's illusionary. Most of it's made up. It's these imaginary ideas and thoughts that it comes up with. So it's constantly looking around going, I just don't want to recreate an old scenario. So I'm looking for, oh, there's a trigger. Oh, that's something to latch onto. And when it latches on, that's when it creates all that crazy stuff in your head. When you get all fidgety and you people will say, I can't meditate. It's not for me. I just don't have the patience. I can't do it. What that really is your ego mind saying, I can't sit still because I get distracted easily. Which, guess what? We all do. I do. I still do. Distraction isn't the end game. In fact, and it certainly should not discourage you. If anything, it should be the reason you do it more. The reason we get distracted is we have we have different forms of consciousness, right? We have our full-on awareness. We have our intuition, obviously. But we have our subconscious and our unconscious. And when we talk about going that deep into the unconscious, you don't even realize the habits, the habitual routines and behaviors and beliefs and all the stuff that influences you. You're not thinking about it. It's just happening. Now, when you have a subtle awareness, there's a subconsciousness to it. You're like, oh, I kind of know that program is playing in the background and I'm working on it, But the unconscious is when it creeps in ways that can end up sabotaging you. So I was coming up with this today as I was laying on the floor. There was some talk outside the door and I was distracted by it. Then I caught myself going, wow, you know why we're distracted? Because the mind is looking to be distracted. You, on an conscious level, are wanting to be distracted because you're so uncomfortable, and the mind will feel something is coming in that I don't know. And because it doesn't know it, it thinks it's something fatal. It thinks it's something negative. It's a threat. Unknown does not mean a threat. And no matter when you feel anxious, does not even mean something bad's going to happen. The anxiety is the mind just knowing it doesn't have an answer. It has no clue. That's all anxiety is. But our minds are conditioned in such a way that we get stuck in that belief system that any form of discomfort means something negative. If you sit with that long enough and just go, whoa, I don't feel comfortable in the silence. I don't feel comfortable in this room full of people I don't know. I don't feel comfortable going out in public. I don't feel comfortable in traffic. I don't feel comfortable sitting and meditating. All of that is this belief system that it's negative. Because it's uncomfortable does not mean it's bad. And the more you're willing to step into the discomfort, you will find the comfort. The way you'll find the comfort, and the only way you'll find comfort, is if you are willing to work on all that, I don't feel like doing it. That's all the more reason you should do it. And celebrate it and get excited about it. Like, this is an opportunity that if you're in awareness and you know you're like that, that is that moment you can shift it and go, okay, so I feel uncomfortable. Let me get excited because, that could be a good thing. And think of all the times, maybe start taking a journal and a note and saying, when were the last times that I felt uncomfortable in a situation and I still acted and it wasn't so bad. In fact, it worked in my favor. I can count, I have countless times in my life where I stepped out of the comfort zone. Like last night, okay, I have to pack to go to winter solstice. And I'm usually really good. I start packing at the beginning of the week, maybe a week in advance, 10 days out or so. I do that so that I make sure that I have everything I need. I'm able to pack my car because it's right up the street. I'm not having to drive, fly out or anything like that. And so I want to make sure that I've got my necessities. Little things like a toothbrush can be something so easy to forget, right, people? Or I like to have my blankets and my pillows and my sheets and my towels, shampoo, conditioner, and soap, all those simple things. But then I also need to consider boots and shoes and flip-flops and tank tops and layers, because the weather is unpredictable. This is the sunshine state, but it's raining. The discomfort is not the problem. It's your thinking about it. Instead of latching in and sitting with it and going, okay, why is this uncomfortable? I guarantee the more you're willing to sit and just really confront it and go, well, what is it that I'm feeling? And notice where you're feeling it in your body. What kind of thoughts are dropping in? What memories are popping in? Because those in themselves are the key to working to repattern, to rewrite your story, and not be so caught up in the unknown, the fear of it, right? The fear of the unknown is the reason why most of us are still sitting going, well, I don't know if I should do this. We don't trust ourselves enough. And to trust ourselves is to just do it, like Nike says. I don't think it's fair they coined that, but really, just do it. Does anybody have any feedback on that? Any experience around it? So, with this self-awareness, and I was laying on the floor, catching myself, and I had just a smile came over my face, because I was like, oh, how funny that I would have this intuition about, I'm looking to be distracted in this moment, and I want to be here in the present moment. And it's such a conundrum, isn't it? It's the paradox of wanting to be present in this space and have this experience, yet my mind is purposefully, unconsciously, consciously looking to be distracted. So I want to be present, yet something deep in me is looking outside for something to take me out of it. How many of you experience that? As crazy as it sounds, we do it all the time. But the point is of this video, the reason I really wanted to share this with you, is to be mindful about it. The moment you recognize it, it's in your awareness, the more you can work on it. The more you can actually step back, maybe write it down. Oh, there I go again. I'm looking for stuff. And for somebody who used to be really good at finding what was wrong with things, now that's part of my strong negative mind, but I also have a very good way of looking at things and perceiving through, we go through the negative, the positive, and the neutral mind. See, we have these three minds for a reason. There's nothing wrong with having a strong negative mind. The problem is when you get so stuck in the negative mind, you're unable to move on to the positive mind and to formulate through neutrality of those two assessments what is the best solution, or what you are able to observe and become aware of. So a beautiful course, it's called Mind and Meditation, and it's the level 2. It's the first level 2 that I took for Kundalini Yoga. And this book is phenomenal. It's called The Mind. The Mind, its projections and multiple facets. It's Yogi Bhajan's book. And it's one of the best books I've read. And I'm going to tell you right now, to read this book, it's phenomenal. Just reading the book, not all books you can sit down and read. I'm just saying. Because sometimes you'll take a book and you'll sit down and you'll be like, okay, I need a break. This one's actually written well enough that it keeps your attention. You wouldn't think it would. But he has some great insights in here. Like 10 principles to live by and avoid injury to self. Page 21. Here, there's 10 of them. I'm just going to read the first 5. If you don't want enemies, don't have friends. Love is not dove. Don't be so sweet that people will want to eat you, or so bitter that people will want to throw you away. Open the lips, sink the ship. That means don't talk unnecessarily. Excellence, elegance, and grace are the three elements of a human being. If somebody challenges any of these three in you, avoid that person. I'm going to read that one again. That's a really good one. Elegance, excellence, and grace are the three elements of a human being. If someone challenges any of these three in you, avoid that person. Number 6 is only show your strengths, not your weaknesses. And that one right there is interesting because how many out there have said, I don't want to show weakness because people will use it against me. Oh yeah. And that in itself can be a story. And we have to be careful about regurgitating and saying certain things, because when you start saying, oh, every time I say something or I share something deep within me, a truth or a pain or a trauma, somebody uses it against me, uses my weaknesses against me. Just saying that is also reinforcing it to happen. And so again, with the self-awareness and working with, if that's in your belief system, then no wonder it's being recreated. Because if you're talking about it, you say it, and then you're so strongly holding on to it, that attachment. The only way to move that, to shift that, is to reword it, to remove it and release it. But that takes awareness, and it takes a willingness to show up and grow through it. So this is not something that happens overnight. And if you're somebody out there who says, oh, I can't meditate, it's not for me, I get distracted too easily, my mind's in overthinking, that's all the more reason we need to meditate every day. Because meditation is to clear out the garbage pit. All this crazy stuff that's going on in our heads, the only way to get it out of us is to sit with it. And if you're unwilling to sit with your stuff, the thoughts that come up, how are you ever going to get to know who you are? Because that's all a part of who you are. It isn't who you are, but it influences you. So I wanted to also touch upon this whole self-awareness in the way that the reason we want to get distracted, this being a coping mechanism of the mind trying to support and protect and avoid any type of harm to you, is also part of our identity. And the more we can work on not identifying and labeling ourselves, to even say that you don't belong to a certain group or that you don't want to be labeled, is also labeling. It's the craziest thing. None of us want to be labeled. We want to be seen as our unique individual selves. But do we do that for ourselves? Because if we're not doing it for ourselves, there's no way anybody else is going to show up to us where we're at, where we want them to be, only where we're at and how we're talking to ourselves. So this whole identity thing, this is the personality, this is the protection. Well, I can't meditate. Well, you're identifying with something that's rejecting something about yourself at the same time. So you have to be willing to accept yourselves in all facets, in all ways. Whatever comes up for you is an opportunity, whether it's a trigger, excitement, anxiety, whatever it is, distraction. That is part of what will help you grow. You don't have to identify with it, but you can confront it. You don't have to say, oh, I don't like this about myself and push it away. In fact, all the more you need to accept it and embrace it. Because when you can embrace all those aspects of yourself, you're going to be so much more whole, because we are not little bits and pieces of ourselves. We can't just take the little good stuff that we like and throw away the stuff we don't, because that's also throwing away of ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with any part of us. Nothing needs to be fixed. It just really wants to be loved, honored, appreciated, and accepted. And so just like we say in Beyond Addiction, when you numb the pain, you numb the joy. When you throw away the bad parts that you claim on yourself, you're also throwing away the good parts. Because you wouldn't know yourself without one or the other. And these polarities, these good and bads, are not even good and bad. They're just what they are. It's the meaning we put on them, you put on them, I put on them. If I don't like that, I've just put meaning toward it, which means I've attached emotion to it, which means my mind is all up in it. But our hearts are accepting and are willing to own all of it. We just need to get out of this a little bit more and a lot more into here. I hope this is resonating with y'all, with whoever is showing up, because the message is always for whoever needs it. I do believe we get insight when we're open and looking for it, just like the distractions. Without that distraction this morning, maybe I wouldn't have gleaned the insight I had. But there I was, laying on the floor, having a similar repeat experience so that I could even see further and deeper into the reality of this unconscious influence of my mind, and how on that deep, deep level, I was looking, and I do look for a distraction to keep me from doing what I claim I want to be doing right now. In this present moment, I want to be meditating. Oh, that noise outside. Because my mind doesn't want to sit here, because it's uncomfortable for my mind. My mind doesn't want to be silent, because silence is the hardest thing for most of us to sit in. If you only knew what it took for me to go to a yoga class that meant meditation. For years, I was high impact and physical. I had to do everything with my body, and to me, moving meditation worked the best. But then I started to recognize that I needed to slow down and that I needed to stay still. Now, I didn't say it was going to be easy, and I didn't think it was going to be easy. I just pushed it away as long as I could until I just knew I was being pulled into it. And your soul, your spirit will guide you in the direction that you need to be guided for your evolution, for you to grow. Because that's what's happened for me all of my life. And the more you're willing to go with it instead of resist and try to push it, it will be that much easier for transition. You know, they say that 100% of the results come from 80% of the work, or 80% of not working on it is being still, being silent, and 20% of the work. So let's say that again. The 80-20 rule is that 100% of the results comes from 20% of the work and 80% of being with what is and just allowing. Most of it's actually happening behind the scenes and on an energetic level that most people have been conditioned, I myself included. Oh, if I'm not doing something, if I'm not busy, if I'm not working, then I'm not being productive. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I'm calling a BS moment right here. And I know it from my personal life, because there are times when I forget all the hard work I put in and things start unfolding as a result of it. And some of that hard work looked easy to other people, but it wasn't as easy as it looked. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's experienced this. So it's really celebrating and being mindful of everything and how it influences us and how we attach belief systems to our situations, to our experiences, and how that unfolds in a way that our experience is going to be based on that. Every experience we have can be heavily tethered or lightly feathered. And yes, that one just dropped in. When I say every experience could be heavily tethered by the fear of the past and the heaviness and the burden of holding on and attaching to strong belief systems that aren't serving us, or it can be lightly feathered with the resiliency and the effortless and malleable fluidity of allowing. Like, I now allow more that my beliefs are not what I think they are, and that they didn't serve me, then I have to learn to work with what it really is. I've let go of some serious belief systems that I used to hold dearly tight, like so hard. I don't want to let go of this. And I'm grateful, because they served me up until a point. And when they no longer serve, it's time to let it go, let it flow. Say thank you. Bye-bye. See you later. Yeah. So, another thing I was going to share with you all In this book, I'm just going to open up. Here's a great topic, selecting your path. I just saw that. Many people believe that the spiritual path is difficult and the neurotic path is easy. Students profess it, and even some teachers encourage this idea. This is Yogi Bhajan speaking in his words. I have never agreed to it, nor am I willing to agree to it now. It takes the same effort and energy to walk either path. The difficulty lies in the nature of the mind and how it grasps things and becomes entranced by feelings and sensations. The problem lies in being subject to time rather than being one step ahead of time. The more you can be present in your mind and be aware of the way that your mind operates and works, you're no longer a victim of it because you're one step ahead of it. That's what this is ultimately saying. The more you can sit with your mind, as crazy as the monkey mind can get, as crazy as the thoughts unravel, the more you get to know you. And that's the intimacy I talk about, the into me I see. That's your true intuition, is the willingness to be with all of that it is, to confront it when it pops up and it tries to work you in one direction or the other because it's trying to keep you safe. The more you can master your life. That's mastering the mind. When you're one step ahead of that mind, you're no longer going to be a slave to it. In fact, you become the master of it. And when you master your mind, you master your life. So he also goes on to say, we often fight the wrong battle. We do not identify the real problem. The problem is not the spiritual path. It is the way we react to our immediate feelings rather than to the things that will be with us through time and beyond time. We make sense of our soul, remote or close, according to how we handle our mind. Direct the mind with immediate sensations and convoluted negotiations, and we create neuroses and confusion. Direct it with the power of an infinite word, words of truth, and we will excel with clarity, kindness, and love. That's a huge shift. And how many of us are willing to do it? So when you're willing to do the work, when you're willing to show up for you, then you value yourself. It takes time, but don't be unkind. The mind is tricky, but it's not as tricky as you could be if you start sitting with it and confronting it. So you can call its game. You can call it on its little tricks and say, I got you. There you go again. And I do it with my mind. I'm like, oh, there you go again. You thought I didn't remember that. So I really highly encourage, no matter how crazy your mind, honor it, appreciate it, thank it, but get to know it and really just love it as it is. It's served you. And then Buddy's even telling you. He's telling me somebody's here. He's a barker, but he's in the other room. And I'm like, Buddy, if you're barking, why aren't you going to check what it is? He's so funny. So just because it's Friday the 13th, and because I have the book, the Oracle cards with me, let's see what the weekend has in store. The other thing I also wanted to share, I don't know if any of you are open. If you want to see me doing the solstice experience, whether I should do videos or not, let me know in the comments what you think. Yeah, the mind does need sleep. And it's not just the mind, it's the body. Because the body responds to that mind. Right, Kelly? Trish? So here we go. You set an intention. If you have any questions out there, are you looking for guidance, and you might be here at the right time. Alrighty. So yes, I leave tomorrow morning. Oh, honey, 33rd wedding anniversary. Sending you love. So if you would like to see me making some videos the next week and a half, let me know. All right. Ooh, funny, funny, funny. Here's today's card. Timeout. What do you think? Who out there could use a timeout? Anybody? Anybody? Gotta love it. So timeout is number 22, and then you get the double numbers if you're anything like me. So timeout says, see that corner over there? It's yours alone, and it's time to claim that special space. It doesn't matter what's going on out there. It doesn't matter what others are saying. Everything except your own blessed joy is now history. Stake your claim, then take a break. It is all smooth sailing now. I think timeout we pulled the last time. And then the other one is right side up, also popped up. So Trish, I'm heading to Lake Wales for winter solstice. And I go every year for White Tantra, the Kundalini yoga weekend. It's actually 3 days of White Tantra, and I work on the security gate. So right side up, here we go. It is now safe to unbuckle your seatbelt. Doesn't matter how it looks, you're on the right path. Unseen forces are working behind the scenes, smoothing out the bumps, righting all injustices. Any apparent blip is nothing but a reminder to pay attention, to say thank you. The scales are tipping in your favor. Everything is coming back into balance. It's time to trust that what goes down must come up. I think that's great. And it's perfect. So exactly whatever is going on in your life is how that may be speaking to you. And ultimately, I mean, our minds, come on, people. Time out. If you get an opportunity, I don't care if you do it for just a minute, you tap into the breath and just watch. Because when you focus on the breath, it slows the mind. The mind, we like to hear our own voice. We like to hear our own breath. And when the mind hears its own breath, it kind of slows it down. So the more that you can really follow the breath, closing your eyes and just feeling how it enters your body and how it disperses and excites and energizes your cells and your organs and your blood and your nervous system. And you're just feeling that life force, that prana moving throughout your body. How? Because the oxygen is what we all need. The brain needs more oxygen. Don't you agree? So I hope you all have an amazing weekend. I'm not sure what I'll be doing as far as if you want me to do some videos, I will gladly make up more videos. I will be posting as much as I can. It's the time of year I look forward to for sure. And I will keep you all in my heart and prayers because I like to keep all of you in my prayers and in my heart. So I love you very much. Be safe, be blessed.